Good afternoon, I'm Vashan Brown with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Head of Crime, Assistant Commissioner of Police Fitz Bailey, says he has assigned a team of senior investigators to probe the circumstances which led to the death of Jodian Fearon. Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced yesterday that he'd asked the police commissioner to probe the incident that has triggered public outrage. ACP Bailey told the TVJ News that the investigators will be probing whether criminal negligence led to the death of the pregnant woman.
Having heard the accounts of the events in the media, we thought it was our responsibility to conduct a criminal investigation to establish if any person or persons were criminally negligent in failing to discharge his or her duty. I've had discussion with the Commissioner of Police, and coming out of that discussion, a team of senior investigators was assembled and assigned to do the investigation. We have implored on the officer the need to ensure that this matter is dealt with expedition so that the facts can be obtained and ventilated in a manner that is provided for by the law.
Now, DCP Bailey also noted that guidance in the probe is being provided by the Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, Ms. Fearon was initially a patient at the Andrews Memorial Hospital and was reportedly denied admission to 2 hospitals, after which transfer requests were made after she began displaying symptoms of COVID-19. She later had her baby at the Spanish Town Hospital and eventually died at the University Hospital of the West Indies. The government says it will not be funding the fares of Jamaicans overseas to come home when border restrictions are relaxed for a controlled re-entry. The government on Monday began accepting applications from persons seeking re-entry via its COVID-19 website.
At a media briefing yesterday, Foreign Affairs Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith noted that Jamaica cannot afford the travel costs for the hundreds of Jamaicans stranded overseas.
We know that many of our citizens, however, at whom these protocols are targeted, so not the general overseas community who always wants to come home, but our citizens who traveled before travel restrictions were implemented globally and who now wish to return. We recognize that they mostly have return tickets for flights which would have been cancelled. And accordingly, we have started informing the airlines of our new protocols for controlled re-entry and advising them that nationals who still hold tickets for their airlines will now be seeking to rebook once they have received the travel authorization through our new online portal.
Mrs. Johnson-Smith stressed that returning Jamaicans will have to agree to be tested and to being placed in government quarantine for 14 days as part of the repatriation process. She said there would be limited access for relatives. In the meantime, the Foreign Affairs Minister says persons experiencing severe difficulty overseas will be given high priority for return.
If you have been identified as a high priority travel recommendation, if you are someone who we have been in touch with and already providing assistance, so we know that your needs are verified, urgent, and critical, then you will be flagged for priority in consideration once the other matters, that is your health sign-in, your travel document verification, have been approved by the relevant authorities.
Mrs. Johnson-Smith also noted that the returning citizens will not be allowed to take public transport upon their return to the island.
It won't be the type of situation where your family comes to the airport to greet you, etc. There will be managed greeting, plainside, and organized transportation immediately from plainside to the location for quarantine, where you will be tested for the COVID-19 disease at the start of the quarantine period.
Though we have adopted a risk-based management approach, it doesn't mean that we dispense with strategies such as controlled re-entry and contact tracing. We need those strategies to be in place to prevent outbreaks.
Now, as to the Jamaicans who arrived in the island between March 18 and 24, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says a significant number of them have now reported.
By and large, I gather that maybe a few hundred, maybe 200 or 300 have not reported, but by and large, most have reported, and I want to thank them for giving us the information, because that information allows us now to plan, to deploy resources, and to have a good idea of what the threat could be.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, the government says it will increase the standards and level of inspection for business process outsourcing sector. It comes as data revealed by the Health Ministry showed that one BPO entity, Alorica in Port Moore St. Catherine, is responsible for more than 70% of the COVID-19 cases in the parish. Prince Moore reports.
With so many positive COVID-19 cases from the Alorica call center in Port Moore St. Catherine, many Jamaicans are questioning what really transpired at the facility. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the situation at the call center was a wake-up call.
What did that outbreak do? That outbreak generated 1,513 points of contact tracing, meaning that the public health department had to be mobilized to track down, interview, quarantine, isolate, bring to hospitals, shift resources for logistics and transportation, massive redirection of resources that were geared towards another mission-critical event, which was to bring Jamaicans back home.
But the government has sought to control the spread of the virus in the BPO sector through improved protocols. Speaking at a press briefing yesterday, Minister without portfolio in the Economic Growth and Job Creation Ministry, Darrell Vaz, outlined some of those measures.
We have come up with inspections and audits protocols, new ones. Self-inspection checklists developed and signed off by all agencies and departments, joint inspection operation plan, the assessment tool developed and circulated for use by the inspection team. The assessment team will be led by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. An inspection of exempted BPO facilities will be done first, followed by those that are closed. Also, geospatial mapping to all BPO locations.
Another measure Mr. Vaz noted is a daily report from BPO facilities which operate in Jamaica to the Health Ministry and the Office of the Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, in relation to security and monitoring. Closed-circuit television CCTV systems must be installed.
In case where entities currently have CCTV, that the Jamaica Constabulary Force will be allowed to access such data. And let me just indicate that we are only interested in seeing what's happening in terms of the movement of persons and not the businesses that you are carrying out.
At present, under 12,000 persons in the BPO sector are working from home, another 800 in hotels, and over 9,200 which have been exempted based on critical services. In the meantime, Mr. Vaz noted that inspections of BPO facilities have begun by the Health Ministry.
I am pleased to indicate that based on our meeting today, the Ministry of Health and Office of Disaster Preparedness has assured me that we should be in a position to complete the inspections by Thursday of this week, meaning that all of the exempted BPO operations would be inspected, and of course, whatever needed to be done to make sure that they were in full compliance will be done. And more importantly, those BPOs that are currently closed, which the Prime Minister, as part of the mandate to me, required that we got them reopened within the 14 days, we should have inspected by Monday of next week.
In the meantime, TVJ News understands that the worker from Sutherland Global who was in contact with an employee from Alorica tested negative for the coronavirus. Prince Moore, TVJ News.
And we now take a break on the Midday News. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Continuing the news now. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke has confirmed that COVID-19 has caused an increase in unemployment in Jamaica, with the numbers affected being in the tens of thousands. He has also shared more information on the widening impact of the coronavirus on certain types of employment. Speaking at yesterday's news conference at Jamaica House, Dr. Clarke explained that the conclusions are being drawn from data provided in the number of applications under the government's Support Employees with Transfer of Cash program. It involves the government giving cash grants to individuals who can show they lost their employment since March 10, and it's due to COVID-19. According to Dr. Clarke, the impact spans several sectors.
We have over 60,000 care set cash applications. The vast majority of those are for persons who work in the formal sector. And we are seeing that the job losses, the layoffs, are occurring in a number of sectors and subsectors. We're seeing substantial job losses in the airline industry, which should not be a surprise, in the aviation industry, i.e. the businesses that service airlines, whether they be catering companies or companies that provide other mechanical and other services or ground services to airlines. We're seeing significant job losses and layoffs in the hotel sector, which itself employs directly tens and tens of thousands of persons, bartenders and waiters, room attendants and persons who work on landscapes of hotels. These are all Jamaican citizens who play their part in making our country function. These are human beings and these are livelihoods. And we have to be as concerned about these livelihoods as we are concerned about protecting lives from the health perspective.
Vendors who use the Maypen market in Clarendon will be displaced until Friday, this following a forced closure of the parish's largest market for sanitization works. The move is to help halt the spread of the coronavirus in the parish. More in this report from Dwayne Anderson.
Public spaces where large crowds gather are considered hotbeds for the spread of COVID-19, and few places in Maypen Clarendon attract as many people as the market. That's why the local government authorities in the parish have decided to close the Maypen market. The facility will be closed for the next 3 days. During that time, they will conduct cleanup work. It is part of the COVID-19 response in the central parish, where several cases have been found.
When we looked at the locations where these people are from, these cases are from, we saw that it was a lot of communities surrounding the town center of Maypen. And so we know that from time to time, people travel into the town to do their business, and the market area is where a lot of people gather. And we also notice that the buyers, the shoppers who visit the market, especially on weekends, they tend to congregate along the Muir Park Avenue, which is the street that goes around the market. Now, what we saw the need for is to do a thorough cleaning of the market and sanitization. We had been doing piecemeal approaches.
And some of the vendors, despite the possibility of loss in earnings, are supportive of the measure.
I'm glad and pleased to see we are going right now, because I'm glad to say with the time, the market will lock down for clean up. Because really and truly, the market will want clean from corner to corner. Because the people in the market are very, very nasty. They throw garbage all over the place. So right now, we're glad to get a great time 4 days to get the market clean up. Come back Friday morning. I'm satisfied with that. I'm not saying not too long, but I'm glad for it to clean up. So I appreciate it. Even though sometimes we want money, yes, we want to sell, but I'm still glad we are work with it.
And when the rainfall around there, a river come down around the same way. And some stinking place, all the rubbish bin. Then when rubbish bin down my back, so I think like hell, like thunder. If you think I like me, I tell when you go walk there, like you go down a town park, walk my back part, and see if you can catch your breath. And never talk about corona.
One vendor suggested when the market reopens, it is partitioned with one area designated a mini farmers market.
But when I say we buy same place in our market, it's hard for we buy and sell same place because we are buy food for the people. Them suppose we buy something for $50. When we buy, we go figure sell for $70 or so, and them sell for same $50 where them sell with her. It's hard for we sell, so it's hard for we survive. It's hard for we survive in our market with the people. Them. So them can't mix the farmer with the higgler. Them have to separate. We make we go one side and them go one side. It is rough. We can't work out. We not make no money.
During the period of closure for the Mapen market, vendors and customers are advised to use the other markets in the parish, namely Chapelton, Frankfield, Kellits and Rocky Point. Dwayne Anderson, TVJ News.
To other news now, a 3-year-old boy died in a fire in Mason Hall, St. Mary over the weekend. However, while firefighters are yet to determine the cause of the blaze, the child's father is still mourning.
Remains of a bed where 3-year-old Kajani Faulkner perished in a fire Saturday afternoon. It's inside an old slaughterhouse a few meters away from his home in Mason Hall, St. Mary. His father, Ian Faulkner, who is also a fireman, was at home sleeping while Kajani, his older brother and cousin were playing outside. A few minutes later, tragedy.
Shortly after they went to play, I heard screams, "Daddy, Daddy, come here quick." And I ran in their direction. I saw the fire and they called out, "Fire, fire, fire." Midway to the slaughterhouse, I heard Kajani screaming. That's the one that died. I tried my best to save him running inside the building, but unfortunately it was too late.
Mr. Faulkner attempted to out the blaze with water from a nearby tank before rushing Kajani to the hospital. He was pronounced dead. Mr. Faulkner was also injured in the fire, but that was not the worst of it.
I've been to, terrible accidents, but seeing a child perish in a fire, it's beyond words. Beyond words. You're old. And to take up my child, child remains, it's beyond words. Beyond words.
The Port Maria fire station was alerted, but by the time they got to the location, the fire was already out. They have since launched an investigation to determine the cause. Giovanni Dennis, TVJ News.
Time now for sports. President of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games Organizing Committee, Ashira Mori, says the postponed Olympics will be scrapped if they cannot take place in 2021. Health experts are doubtful on whether the Games could be held next summer without a vaccine or effective drugs to treat COVID-19. When asked if the event could be moved again to 2022, Mori replied, no. In that case, the Olympics will be scrapped. However, the Tokyo 2020 president said he was confident that the rescheduled games would go ahead. Tokyo 2020 is now scheduled to run from July 23 to August 8 next year. And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Join us at 7 for a primetime news package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon.